Hello! It's Jorbs here. This is my first Patreon Ask Me Anything. This might be the first time I've ever made a YouTube video quite like this. I have 3 questions that I have selected from a grand total of 3 questions. So if you are a patron and you want me to answer a question next month, if you get it in, there's a pretty good chance I'll be able to answer it. Yeah, you just, like, any patron pledge of $1 or whatever, even if you're not a patron, if you think there's a question that would be really cool to hear answered in a YouTube video, I'd love to hear it. But the idea is that at the start of each month, I'll record one of these, and they will go out to my patrons first via Patreon, and then go public on YouTube maybe a few days later as well. So I have 3 questions. Mostly having to do with Slay the Spire, but talking about some stuff that sort of goes off parallel to Slay the Spire into other games a little bit. Question number 1. I'm curious if you use or have used cheat sheets for remembering enemy attack patterns. I doubt you use them now, as the game is part of your DNA and you know what enemy does what on any given turn, but I'm curious if you ever put intentional study into knowing their patterns or if you just absorb the information of the course of normal play. Cool question. And I actually have 2 sort of very different modes with this as a player of games. There are games where the enjoyment of the game, the experience of playing the game, is coming from discovering the game for me. A really good example of this would be Grease was a game that I played that was just like a platformer. It's just like 4 to 6 hours maybe to complete the entire game. And once I'd done that, I was done. And for a game like that, I'm not going to look up any information at all. And there are games that I've played for much longer times than 4 to 6 hours, which are games like that for me. Like The Sims, I would say. I've never bothered looking up information in The Sims. The reason I'm playing the game is just to find out what happens, and so looking it up sort of defeats the purpose. However, there are other games where the switch flips 100%. If I'm playing a game where I want to try to be the best I possibly can be at a game, then I'm going to get all the information I possibly can, and that can go, like, even beyond using cheat sheets. It can go all the way into like looking at the game code and stuff like that. So when I played Long War 2, when I played Slay the Spire, when I played FTL, I'm like on forums talking with people who are decompiling game code, theorizing about how certain different things work, working out little tiny exploits. To give you an example, in an FTL subreddit thread, I talked with some people who had also played FTL for thousands of hours, and we worked out that on hard mode, if you depowered your weapons right before the enemy fired, and then powered them up again after the enemy had fired, there was actually a much lower chance that the enemy ship would target your weapons. And all of a sudden, that's... exploit's probably not even the right word for it. That's a game mechanic that we worked out that we could use to improve our win rate at FTL. And that's definitely how I've been with Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire is written in Java. There are people who have read the game code. There are people who have made sheets that break down the AI for different fights and tell you the exact percentages for different floors and stuff like that. And I have read a ton of stuff like that. I've talked about a ton of it. The stuff that I think is really important is in my head at this point. There are things that I don't keep in my head because they don't come up often enough, or I don't think they're that important, and for those I'd have to look it up. But sometimes I even look stuff up during a run. If I'm playing a turn and I have Runic Dome and I really want to know, is it 70% likely to do this move or 65% likely to do this move, like I just really need to know right now, I'll take a moment and look something up online. And for Slay the Spire, if you Google Slay the Spire reference, there's a great spreadsheet that's put together by Forgotten Arbiter, or Quincunx. Is another name that he goes by, I believe. And that's mostly where a lot of the information that you'd need is going to be compiled. And then there are some other things that you can find in Reddit threads and stuff like that. So that is my answer to that. Most games that I play, I fall in the former category these days. The games that I really care about getting super good at, XCOM, FTL, Slay the Spire. Stardew Valley is sort of one that's sort of half and half. Like, I don't care about playing it well, but sometimes I like looking things up. Alright, question 2. Do you ever consider playing a move with a higher entertainment factor, even if you find it suboptimal for the goal of winning? How often and what do you think about it? If you do you feel it compromises your win rate? Does it have to do with the fact that you stream to a live audience, or do you just want to spice it up a little bit for your personal enjoyment? If you don't, how are you able to still enjoy the game after 2,000 hours, in which you've probably already seen it all? Was that scene making you, like, hope that I'd start playing a run? I feel like it might have been. Let's get paint up on screen, though. So, my answer to this question is yes. Sometimes I do stuff. I wouldn't say exactly just for entertainment factor. I never do something that I think is absolutely terrible just for entertainment factor. Maybe there have been charity runs where that's happened. Yeah, there have probably been some runs for charity on the channel where that's happened. Maybe there have been some runs where I'm just like in sort of a goofy mood and we've picked up shovel and I've used dig at campfires way more often than I should have. But usually how this works is, let's say that there's one card option, like picking Noxious Fumes or something, and I'm never sure exactly how likely Noxious Fumes is to win me the run, but let's say that over here is 100% likely to win the run, 100, and here's like 50% likely to win the run, and here's 0% likely to win the run. If I'm looking at Noxious Fumes, I'm probably like, like Noxious Fumes is probably like right now, maybe it's like this or something. It depends what else is going on, right? But I'll be like, yeah, probably I'm somewhere like 50 to 65 to win the run with Noxious Fumes if I pick Noxious Fumes here. Or maybe the run's going really poorly and I'm like, Noxious Fumes probably puts me somewhere between 5 and 10%. So what happens is I'm never 100% sure exactly how good it is. And sometimes there's another card, and I will think that it's worse. I'll think it's like, you know, this card probably makes me 45 to 55% likely to win the run or something like that. But if there's some overlap in there, I'm sometimes open to exploring and trying to get a better idea of exactly how good cards are in certain situations. And so if there's a card that I haven't taken in a situation like this before and I think it could be interesting, and I think there's a possibility that it's good, sometimes I'll do that so that I can find out if it is good. That's part of learning the game for me, basically. The less confident I am about what will happen if I do something, the more likely it is that I can't dismiss it yet. Like, if I don't know exactly what will happen, it's really hard for me to say, oh, that's obviously terrible, because maybe it's good. And so if I have something where it's just like very different and I've never tried it before and I'm not sure that it's bad, sometimes I will go ahead and try it out and see what happens. I think that that does lower my win rate in the short term, but I think it increases my win rate in the long term. And overall, I'm not really playing to maximize my win rate. What I'm playing for is I'm playing for my ability to entertain other people with my Slay the Spire play. And two main things that happen from that are I do things which are interesting and useful for people to watch, and I do things which let me be a better teacher of the game. Because people watch my channel in order to enjoy watching my runs and in order to learn about the game from me. And so it's really important to me that I'm playing at a high level and trying to make the best decisions in general so that people can learn from me. But it's also really important that sometimes I try something new to make sure that I'm keeping on learning everything that there is to know about the game. I would basically be doing the same thing if I didn't stream Slay the Spire. If I wanted to get as good as possible at Slay the Spire, I'd basically be doing the same thing, just because I'd often want to know what a card was like, and so I'd try out something new. Am I able to still enjoy the game after 2,000 hours in which I've probably already seen it all? I haven't actually seen it all in Slay the Spire yet. Slay the Spire is such a big game. There are so many different things that can happen, and I'm still having runs where some relic will do something that I hadn't thought about before, or some turn will come down to some combination of cards and relics and maybe one potion that I'd never used quite that way before. And so Slay the Spire remains interesting to me just because there's still new stuff to find out about. There's still difficult decisions to make and still challenging fights to play. And it certainly helps that, like, it's my job. So if I was just playing Slay the Spire for fun, probably I would have, moved on to a different game by now. Probably. Although, in my life, I've played games for fun for very, very large amounts of time, and I think Slay the Spire is a really good one, so I can't say that 100% for sure. But the fact that Slay the Spire is my job and people will pay me to teach them Slay the Spire makes it much more compelling for me to keep playing it. And I'm really happy to be teaching people Slay the Spire. It makes me feel like I've spent my day well, and it's just great to make other people happy and do something that's useful to them. So that definitely keeps me coming back, just having people watching and enjoying what I'm doing. And then the third question was about charity and giving. So moving away from Slay the Spire entirely, actually. Have I ever looked at effective altruism research like GiveWell.com? So the idea of GiveWell.com, and I'm sorry, I don't know everything about this, so I'm sorry if I get some of this wrong, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of it or anything. I'm just trying to summarize my understanding of it so you know where I'm coming from and giving my response. The idea is, say I'm sitting here with $5,000 and want to give them to charity. I might not know what charity to give them to, and so people have realized, there are all these people in the world and they want to give to charity. It would be worth our time to do some research and work out which the right charities are to give the money to in order for them to make the best impact on the world. And my personal answer for this is no. And the reason for that is that I'm not a person who doesn't have a charity to give to. So I support the Dream program pretty much all the time in terms of charity. I've been supporting it for 10 plus years. And the reason for that is that a very good friend of mine from high school went to college and got involved with the Dream program. It's a mentoring program between kids and college students, and it's just super, super good and hits everything that I want a charity to do. It's educating kids, it's giving college students who are in positions to do big things in the world a very good perspective to help them choose to do the right things in the world. It's a small enough organization that I know my donations aren't getting, eaten up by overheads and advertising budgets and stuff like that. They're going directly to helping. And I'm just very, very happy giving money to this program. So for me, I feel like I have a program that I'm personally connected to that I very much trust and really think is a good program to be giving money to for my charitable donations. That doesn't mean that I don't think effective altruism research is bad at all. I think it's awesome. I think that it slants heavily toward stuff like saving lives and curing illnesses. Like, I think if you look at effective altruism research, and again, I'm not an expert, so I might be slightly wrong, but my understanding is that if something was going to get rid of mosquitoes, which are giving people malaria or something like that, that's a huge problem numerically in the world that affects a large number of people. And so I think effective altruism research would look at that and think it was very important. For me personally, when I think about charity, I don't care quite as much about charities which are caring about, like, what's the right way to say this? It's a very hard thing to put in words, I'm realizing right now. I don't care quite as much about charities which are working for quality of life, I guess, for people. I care about charities which are working for, like, direction of life, direction of the world, maybe. So for me, a charity that was getting rid of malaria would help a huge number of people, right? And it's very clear to me that that would be a good thing to do in the world. But for me, something that would be even more important would be a charity which educated people about global warming, that changed the direction of what we were doing. Because I think everybody agrees that, just about everybody agrees that malaria is something that needs to be beaten. But I think that there's a grand scope sort of thing in the direction that humans are taking, where something like climate change isn't being addressed properly. I feel sort of similarly about war. I think that humans tend to massively underestimate how dangerous war is. We're sort of in wars right now, but we haven't had a huge war on the planet for 70 plus years, which is awesome. But that doesn't mean that we can't again. If you look at human history, it's very likely that we will again. And so for me, the charities that I'm looking for are charities that try to connect people and make them care about each other and make them think about what's really important in the world and what they can do to make things better there. I think that's something that humans have to get better at in order for us to have the best outcome. I think that's a really good place to put resources. And I don't think those are things that are generally prioritized by effective altruism research because it's so subjective, all the stuff I've just said. That's something that's important to me, but isn't necessarily important to other people. So that is my answer to that question, and hopefully that makes sense. And yeah. Thank you for the questions. That was fun. It was nice to think about some stuff. And I look forward to doing another Patreon Ask Me Anything next month. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the support. I'm Jorbs. And I'll see you next time.